When is sharing information bad? The Notre Dame was created in 1163 and burned April 2019. It was an historical building of Paris and one of the top tourist destinations. When this mighty building of Gothic architecture turned to ash, the world learned of it within seconds. There's an academic article that talks about how a crisis can descend into tiny fires all around the world. Excuse the terrible pronunciation, but Bogdan Kozman and Art Lesbod talked about these crises in their article, Social Media on a Source of Information and Misinformation, on the example of the Notre Dame fire. The article talks about how the internet evolved into what we know of it today. Web 1 is the start of the internet, when it was a one-way communication. Web 2 is when the internet evolved into giving individuals the ability to share information. Web 3 is what we understand the internet to be today. It is the age of social media and the algorithms. The Notre Dame fire happened when most of the world had access to the Web 3 internet. When the Notre Dame's crisis started, its fire was seen and shared by millions of people within seconds. Videos, photos, and live reactions were shared and seen during the 3 days after the burning of the Notre Dame. People's curiosity and sadness were felt and shared throughout the world. Photos were taken by the public and shared by the public with no consideration to what was being communicated. A low-res photo was taken and shared by a user who gave no caption, but people began to speculate that the person in the photo looked like a Muslim man. And when the American politician Christopher J. Hell tweeted that he heard from a source that the fire was not an accident, this changed the attitudes of people and caused hate to spread. The fires were only stoked when another photo came out of two men leaving the hazard zone with smiles on their face, and the Notre Dame caught ablaze in the background. Big news organizations shared these photos with captions such as, "Muslims laugh as blaze destroys Notre Dame Cathedral during Holy Week." It was later learned that the reason these men were laughing was just moments earlier, one of them got stuck in the safety tape. The article wraps up talking about the politicians' communication about the fire. The president and mayor of Paris spoke of needing to rebuild the Notre Dame, and this message was sent out via Twitter. In Chapter 2 of Communication in Times of Trouble, the book talks about how communication is a process that involves many steps. In this case, the communication happened rapidly. Those who were there during the start of the fire sent out the message first. Then the world received it and learned of it. People sent out messages of sadness and worry. People started sharing photos of every angle during every hour of the day. This resulted in feedback and high emotion opinions to be shared. When low-resolution photos started being shared, photos of people smiling with fire behind them, this all caused a very high emotional response that was not helped by the communication people were seeing on the internet. When Christopher J. Hell tweeted out his speculations, it changed the attitudes of people. Hate speech started to spread, and articles about Muslims setting the Notre Dame, a historical Christian building, ablaze. This hurt the Muslim community, even though these news publications and tweets had no evidence, and in fact was disproved by higher resolution photos. It did not matter. The damage was done. It did not matter that the low resolution photo was disproved by a higher resolution photo that showed that the Muslim man was actually just a firefighter. The internet loves gossip. Even without any proof, these misinformation starts a small crisis on the internet. An attack on an entire religious group. A hate storm on two individuals just because of how they looked. Chapter 4 talks about the importance of organizations having dialogue-level communication with their audience before a crisis happens. During the crisis of the burning of the Notre Dame, many important news agencies, political figures, and well-respected reporters did not take into account how much of a responsibility it was on how they communicated to the public. Having a partnership with the public before a crisis like this leads to people looking to these organizations for the truth of what is happening. When respected political figures report the fire was set on purpose, even if later the post was taken down, this causes damage. The age-old adage that everything is permanent on the internet is very true. People remember and will quote what was said. People who have this power to spread the news and be cited as credible sources have a responsibility to question how they are communicating to the public and what each word is trying to convey. With social media, it's easier to use it in a casual way, to talk about how you are feeling, to share news that hit more emotionally than to help in a crisis situation. It is important for news organizations and politicians to realize that using social media in a casual way during a crisis will only make the crisis worse. The public looks to those they respect during crisis. The Notre Dame was an instance of looking to blame someone, and the internet found its victims. It is important that these organizations do not take the internet lightly during a crisis, and they must use their ability to communicate with people instantly with respect and forethought. Otherwise, we end up in another Notre Dame situation.